Alright, if you're still playing Magical Damage SF, there is frankly something wrong with you. That's just how it is. We're going to be following CC&C on the SF here today, and what I want to say is that you really should be considering this Physical Damage SF build. It is so unbelievably good right now. I think the fact that treads are better and Gloves of Haste is only 400 gold is a massive buff, and overall the jungle items you can get helps out this hero a ton, so let's look into his replay and see how he dominates and goes 8-1. Also, over on the main GameLeap website, I plan to do some more content in terms of pro replays. Usually I focus more on doing the pro replays for YouTube, but I want to do a few for the main website as well. In addition, I'm doing Random 6K, if you don't know what that is. Random 6K is where I basically play pubs and I analyze my own games so you can get in the head of, me, a pro player. Because typically when I'm doing these pro replay analysis, I have to, not completely guess, but somewhat guess on what they're thinking and what their opinions are. But when I'm doing my own replay analysis, I can give you exactly what I'm thinking and show you exactly how I win my games and how you can do it too. And quickly, what I want to mention is that if in the future, you plan on becoming a pro player, like the video. It helps me out a lot, and we should just band together in our journey to become the best possible players, because that's why we're all here. I still love Dota. It's just such an amazing game, and it forever will be. So help me out, like the video, and let's keep going. So the first thing we obviously need to pay attention to when we're talking about SF is a couple of the new changes and things I recommend that you change in general. So first off, one of the main reasons I think SF is a significantly better hero is that his ultimate now fears everyone in an AoE. I'm sure if you've played against this, you could tell how frustrating it is, because even if you get clipped by it, it just fears you for like 0.3, 0.5 seconds, and all of a sudden your whole team fight is just thrown off. So overall, I really like this hero right now. I think it's underrated, as long as you can pick it in a draft with heroes that can set up and initiate for you, which they definitely have this game. They have, a Void Spirit to kite in and out, and then they have 2 supports who can set up the fights for him. In addition, you might be like, oh, TA, right? Doesn't TA crush SF? Not anymore. In fact, I think there's a lot of players who believe that SF actually counters TA, for the reason being that TA no longer can use Refraction to deny, and ever since that change has been put in place, SF can do quite well. In addition, TA sometimes, especially if the TA player is not very good, lacks the ability to push out the early wave, and in addition, what we'll be seeing in a minute, is that CC&C actually manages to bring the wave under his tower at level 1. So the first thing we're going to observe here is a couple things. He has Raise level 1, which I highly recommend. I think it is significantly more reliable than Necromastery level 1. It allows you to get your early items because you can secure the CS if needed. In addition, it lets you push out the wave if needed. In addition, you won't get your range creep denied, highly likelihood. Also, what I want to say is that he has 2 Enchanted Mangoes to start the game, no Iron Branches, which is surprising. This is something you almost never see anymore. Typically, people really want an Ironwood branch so that they can eat it on the ground with one of their tangos, but we don't see this here. We see 2 mangoes, probably because he's putting a massive priority on the ability to actually just be able to raise the TA over and over again. Now, what we're going to see here is he actually is really good at lasting under tower. It's actually not as hard as you guys might think. If the creep gets hit right here and you aggro it even slightly, it will basically go into that lasted range every single time. Like, I don't know exactly why, to be honest. It's a bit weird, but even here, we see him aggro, and if you do this where you aggro the second creep as well, it also will sort of go into this lasted range. Now, it might have seemed kind of like luck, but for whatever reason, I've done this in a ton of my pubs as well, and it seemingly works quite reliably. I don't know why. Just pull aggro when you're under tower, and you're gonna have a high likelihood of getting the CS. I can't, that one confuses me a bit, but you should just pay attention to it and look for it in replays. But yeah, as you can see, he's 3-0. And actually goes 4-0 in the first wave, which is crazy impressive. And now, he's even able to get this range creep deny because of some of his early creep aggro into the laning stage. In addition, he makes this really bizarre play. Like, this play just, I think to most players to be like, what in the world did he just do? I want you guys to take a look at this. Why do you think he did these 2 raises? Well, I don't think there's necessarily a reason to overthink it, but there's one thing I want to point out. Well, first off, he obviously gets some raise damage on the TA. He has 2 mangoes to sustain it, but also pushes in the wave to a large extent, which creates a situation where he's going to be able to shove the next wave back into the TA as well. Overall though, I think the main thing is whenever you can get raise damage onto your opponent, you should just basically go for it with this mango build. You're going to notice that he buys, I think, around 6 to 7 mangoes throughout this laning stage, which I can't stress more to you guys. It's one of those things where if you're playing SF and you're not spamming mangoes, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle because the hero's early spells just cost so much mana. Right? So much mana. It raises our all 90, which is a very high, mana cost per spell considering you have 3 of them. So overall, as you can see, instant, 2 more mangoes, literally buys a second salve, and this is how you have to play SF. You have to. I don't care if you're magical SF, I don't care if you're physical, you have to do this, because it enables you in the early laning stage to do well on a hero that can struggle if he falls behind. In addition, a quick little tip for anyone who hasn't been doing this, I just highly recommend you do. Whenever you're going to the mid lane and you're eating mangoes, make sure you drop your stat items onto the floor. It gives your mangoes a little bit more extra usage. Actually, it's quite significant, and as a result, it will just overall increase the amount of heals you get. It also works for salves, so if you have a lot of downtime, you can do that as well. So the next thing I want to mention is CCC knows that this TA's refraction is currently up, right? At this point in time, refraction currently up, but now she uses it, and this is actually one of the most important things to actually just simply note when they're playing TA. You need to know that it's a 17-second cooldown, and as a result, if you can play around it and catch her off guard when she does not have it up, you can get a big advantage. So you notice he just sneaks in an auto there, and most players would be like, okay, well, he did 0 damage, that was completely useless. Actually, no, that's going to come into play a little bit later on here. As you notice, he hits this close range raise, which nearly breaks the refraction. He then auto attacks her once again, which actually does pop the refraction, and he already has one Shadow Raise stack, because the stack, even though it doesn't technically do damage to the refraction, you still get the amped damage. And as a result, now he can go for an auto attack, a second raise, another auto attack, and a third raise, and that is how you maximize damage on SF. You have to hit, raise, hit, raise, hit, raise, and frankly, this is the case for any hero with nukes. This is typically how you want to play it, whether or not you're a Storm Spirit or a Lina. This is very common, where you want to hit in between your attacks. In addition, this even works for supports with nukes, so don't think this just doesn't count. And finally, we're going to see him give this TA the rundown, and this is exactly how you make an outplay on a hero that typically does not get outplayed by SF, at least this early on. You definitely can if you play too aggressive, though, which is what we're going to see here, right? So he knows TA has refraction. He has, right, 4 charges. So he's going to be looking at this and taking note in his head. Quinn is one of the biggest TA spammers in the game. So what he does is, right, when she pops the refraction here, he hits her once. Unfortunately, it's bugged currently. She does have refraction up, but she only has 2 charges left, right? In addition, the creeps are hitting her, breaking her refraction as well. And then when this creep hits her, he's like, oh, okay. Only 1 refraction charge left. Raise, auto attack, raise. And that raise would not have killed her without the auto attack. I'm just trying to make that clear. Imagine if he didn't sneak in all those auto attacks. Does he get the kill there? Yes or no? No. And this is one of the better players in the world, rank 400. It's not, like, for someone like CCC, it's like, oh, that's a much worse player than me, right? But for the average player, that is a very hard player to solo kill. And he does it only because he sneaked in like 10 to 11 to 12 right clicks that most players would not have been able to do, simply because he was playing on his high ground and looking for them. In addition, it's good to kill yourself even as SF. You might be like, well, you drop half your soul speed, that's terrible. It's not as bad as you might think, because he would probably just get kicked out of the lane for a while and lose even more. So instead, he goes back to the base and, you know, Mans is chilling. So I'm going to end up the laning stage analysis here. I just want to point out one more time, just so you guys really get the point. He knows that the TA has no refraction, so he hits her with a casual double raise. It's kind of that simple sometimes. If you don't want to do this like consistent giga outplay, the best thing you can do is just always be looking for the second and third raise to get free chip damage that is typically low punishment. So that's kind of how you should just look at it. Buy mangoes, use your raises. Now let's talk about a bit of efficiency. I really like this play that he does here. So currently has a double damage room, but that doesn't really matter. What you need to know is that the wave is currently pushing into him. The TA just refraction down the entire wave, side-bladed I should say. And then what he does with the wave, instead of just being, you know, casually lazy and just kind of bringing in under tower, he long races the camp, kind of weakens this creep up, and then does a little short raise to finish up the camp. I just really thought that was a beautiful efficiency play that most players would not have thought of. And as a result, like, those little efficiencies can change the way the game looks, just because you might hit level 6 earlier, you might be able to gank earlier, or it simply just brings you to your next item faster, which, you know, is always the goal of Dota. If you're not looking to grow and become more and more efficient as a core, I don't really know what you're trying to do. That's the only way to improve. And that's kind of what he's consistently doing here. In between waves, whenever it's getting pushed out or pushed in, he's consistently raising this camp to his right, and that is just crazy amplification to his farm. Now for Dire, just so you guys know, the camp you're most likely going to want to be farming is this one over here. It's not nearly as efficient as Radiant for SF, but as you can see, you still want to be looking for it in between waves. So obviously the main goal, push out the wave. Second goal is to amp your efficiency by, you know, trying to raise these camps as fast as possible. And yeah, up until this point, basically what you want to do is you want to be buying these stats, and now he has 55 CS at the 7-minute mark, which is absolutely insane. Moving on for efficiency, make sure you're using your intelligence treads when you actually go for raises to the best of your ability. Buy clarities, right? This was a psycho clarity. I frankly have no idea how in the world this did not get popped. I think the TA was just genuinely afraid of him, which is somewhat correct. In fact, I think he was using the clarity to actually bait to some extent, because his Wyvern was in position to gank, which is pretty comical, but I'm no joke think that's why he popped the clarity. I think it was to just straight up try to bait the TA in, because 9 out of 10 players, I swear, I promise you, I would say 9.9999 out of 10 players would have gone for that clarity. This TA probably felt that it was a bait, or maybe knew the gank was coming, or maybe he just was really confident that he would take no damage. I could be completely overanalyzing this. Regardless, clarity and fake TPs are some of the best ways to actually bait people in Dota. You would be surprised how consistently you can bait a position 4 under tower as a position 5 by clicking a clarity. It's really comical. But yeah, once you have your treads, it's generally important to just sort of be nuking in the wave and starting to amplify your efficiency if you haven't been doing it already, right? If it's 7 minutes in and you're not amplifying efficiency by then, there's something wrong, because now jungle items have come into play, and it's very, very important that you're spam buying clarities. Yes, guys, please spam buy clarities. I will never understand why some players just don't buy clarities. It basically means that you're playing the game incorrectly if you're not buying clarities. I'm serious. You're not playing the game correctly if you're not buying clarities, because they are one of the best items in the game. So yeah, pretty simple formula now. You're just going to be killing every single camp nearby, trying to get as many jungle items as possible, and buying every single stat that comes into play with this drums build. So you notice his current items right now. He has treads, a wand, 2 wraith bands, a crown, and a windlace. All early game items. This allowed him to pick up a kill onto the ET when they tried to gank him onto the shrine, right? They went for a kill on him, but because he had so many stats and a living armor, he was able to turn it around. And finally, make stacks as SF. Guys, please. These jungle items, if you can make stacks, you become the most farmed heroes in the game, because you'll get lucky enough. You basically kick the RNG out of jungling, because there's a high chance you will get a jungle item, and that's exactly what he does, and I just absolutely love it, because now he gets a PMS, and it's like, alright, it is a PMS, which isn't great on SF, but technically, if he wanted to, it does give him 7 agility, which is fairly strong. Now, the first rotation that he makes in this game is this movement towards the top side, which I think for a lot of players, they don't understand the fact that you can make a movement that doesn't equate a gank. Why is this movement effective? There's a couple reasons. They have a high-level Leshrac in the top lane, who is a hero that will max out Diabolic Edict if he's the offlaner, which is exactly what we see here. This is a tower-pushing spell. So, as a mid laner, it is really nice to gank a lane of a hero that can push a tower. Why? Because you can easily transition the kill into a tower, so whether or not it's a Centaur, or a Beastmaster, or a Leshrac, or even a hero that can cut the wave very effectively like an Axe. There's so many examples, but these heroes are good to gank the lane of. Why? Because now you can transition into a tower. In addition, the outposts are coming up, which is just another great reason to actually just try to take the tower. And that's exactly what happens. He doesn't get any ganks. He does cut the wave to increase his efficiency. He takes the small camp because there's no time to be wasted as a high MMR player. And his team manages to gain the outpost, which is why I think that's a clean rotation, and the rotations I prefer. Most players, their rotations are completely random. Stop being random and start being calculated. So what we're going to see next is kind of a change to SF and how you want to be approaching these new fights. In the past, you would typically be looking to burst someone with your ulti or try to catch them when they were turning around a corner. Because now, not only do you get the movement slow from your ulti and all of its previous benefits, but you also get the sphere, right? So you notice in this fight here, you would expect him to go for a long-range raise onto this TA here, but instead, he actually leads with his ulti, which I think is a cool little play here, right? He leads with his ulti, and what it enables him to do is just get a fear onto every single hero, which then follows up into just easy right-clicks onto the SF. He pops his drums to increase his attack speed and finishes up the kill. And that's actually really good to do on SF. So what do I mean by that's really good to do on SF? Well, you want to flank the fight. To look at this one more time, flanking the fights and coming in from the side is one of the most effective things you can do to actually win the early game fights as SF. If you run in the front, guys, what happens if he runs in the front? What happens? He'll get hit by an RP, he'll get hit by TA traps if she has down, he'll get hit by, Scorched Earth, he'll get hit by everything, every AoE spell in the book, and this applies to any hero in Dota. I guarantee it, guys. If you're trying to do well in these early game fights, you want to try to approach from different angles that don't necessarily get you picked off, but allow you to get, a surprise attack on the enemy, and that's what we see here. It's literally the perfect angle, because it allows him to hit multiple raises onto different enemies and easily clean up the fight. And finally, to end off the video, because I just really wanted to focus on the early and mid game with this hero, specifically the early game, because the late game, basically what you want to be doing is you want to be buying items like Satanic, BKB, Daedalus, you want to take Grove Bow if it drops in the jungle, any of these sort of items that allow you to have good stats and just right-click people down. And that's why I mentioned items like Satanic, BKB, because SF doesn't have good mobility, the hero doesn't naturally man up, and as a result, if you buy stats and you buy survivability, you naturally will deal damage because you have all these early game stats, right? He even found an Aquila in the jungle, you buy drums because it's one of the best right-click items in the game, and in addition to that, right, he even buys a meta this game, which is so good here. Not only can you dodge RP, but you can cancel the Doom animation, you can cancel and purge, the Inferno Blade, you completely disjoint auto attacks from the TA, you disjoint the slow and, all the auto attacks from the PA, and finally, it makes it much harder for ET to actually hit you, and you can technically Manta dodge his stuff as well. So overall, I just think it's a really great Manta game, and it lets him man up to people. Not only does this give him movement speed, but it also lets him man up. Pretty much the perfect SF item in my opinion. And now, as we can see in these fights here, basically what you want to do is you want to pop your ulti, it fears everyone else away, and then you single out one person in the fight that is close by. It's so easy to execute, and that's what we're going to see here. He stays on the outside and sort of just right clicks and raises people down. That's the goal. Cast your ulti, get people separated, and then find the people that are separated and kill them. And that's exactly what we see here. Manta to disjoint the PA. You might be like, Speed, what in the world are you saying? How is Manta a PA counter? Well, there you see it, right? You just saw it, right? Gets gone on by the PA, easy Manta, no possible way for him to kill him, because PA actually entirely relies on her slow in the early game. You'd be surprised how important this 50% movement speed slow is for her to actually kill units, but Manta purges it. And that's going to be about it for the video. What I recommend you do, however, just to mention the talents because I think they're important, is you want to take the 20 attack speed at level 10, you want to take the 30 movement speed at level 15, and then at level 20, typically if you're going this right-click build, you're going to want to going for the 2 damage per soul. However, at 25, you guys might be like, oh, it's obvious, right? Don't you take the Presence Aura armor because you're right-click? I would be careful about that because SF is a hero that buys a lot of active items. He buys items like Manta, the BKB, Satanic, right? And as a result, the 40% cooldown reduction is significantly better than you might think as it works on items. In addition, it works obviously on your raises, making them a 6-second cooldown, and it makes your ulti a significantly lower cooldown to 60 as well. So overall, I would not skip past the 40% cooldown reduction. If you go this straight up right click build that's just like Scotty, Dragonlance into Daedalus, like no cooldowns, you probably can just go the Presence Aura, but if you buy items like the Pike, Shadowblade, BKB, Satanic, Manta, you should really consider the 40% cooldown reduction, as it's relatively broken. And that's going to be about it. The enemy team gave up, and this build is just so good, because imagine if he just goes this Yule's Blink build. It's going to be hard for him to get inside the fights, because he's just like 1000 HP, the buildup is absolute garbage, it doesn't allow you to take early game fights well at all, because all you have is mana regen. And if we just go back and think about that early game fight where he was getting ganked by the ET and the TA on his shrine and turn it around, if he was buying a Staff of Wizardry to get up to his next item or a bot's recipe and saving up for that, do you think he lives? The answer is definitely not. It is certainly not the case. The entire game would look different because TA would be snowballing and he would not be. And as a result, I think right-click SF is by far the best way to go, as you want HP and a wand in the early game to snowball these matches. But thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please don't like and subscribe. And of course, I'll see you on the next one. Are you tired of being hard stuck at your rank? Over at GameLeap.com, we have a library of hundreds of guides authored by pro players and coaches covering literally every aspect of Dota. Whether you're looking to master a new hero or role, or just polish up your existing skills, GameLeap is the proven place for competitive gamers to hone their craft and unlock their secret potential. Hit the link on screen right now, to take advantage of our special offer for a 25% discount, guys. 25%, and start your journey today.